So when I first came to the United States, to the state of Oklahoma in 2009, I looked outside my airplane window and I wondered, where are the cowboys? Where are the teepees? To my surprise, I didn't see any. Then I went to school at USAO in Chickasha, a small rural community in central Oklahoma. And one fine evening, I struck this friendly conversation with a group of cowboys who asked me, "So Patel, you're from India. I bet you can see elephants in the streets in India." And I was like, "Yeah, you sure can. Depends on how much you've been drinking." I didn't say that, but that brings me to the problem and issue of stereotyping. We all have stereotypes. I had stereotypes of Oklahoma when I first came here. Oklahomans have stereotypes of me. But we can dispel these stereotypes using anti-bias education. We've all heard the alarming statistic that only 34% Americans own a passport. When I first started teaching in the public schools as a fourth grade teacher, I was appalled to learn that only one of my 60 fourth graders had ever traveled outside the United States, and only 10 of them had ever left the city of Oklahoma City. That's when I realized that my job as an educator was not simply to teach the students academics and disciplines and the subjects as required by the law, but my job was also to broaden their horizons and bring the world to their classrooms, to their families, and to their communities. After my first year of teaching fourth grade, I embarked on a tour of the state of Oklahoma, where I traveled to over 40 schools from the Panhandle to southern Oklahoma, rural and urban, teaching students about different countries, teaching students about different cultures, teaching them different languages. I've had the incredible privilege of traveling to over 30 countries, and I speak 6 languages, so children were fascinated by some of the stories and the lessons that I taught them, from Antarctica to Latin America to South Asia. And on this tour, some of the lessons that I taught included the elephants in the classroom, my personal experiences of working with elephants. I taught children how to make elephant poo-poo paper. Yeah, you heard that right. One elephant gives you about 200 sheets of paper per day, and it's biodegradable. It does not stink. I also taught children how to fight poaching. It's a global problem, poaching of different animals. And I taught children how to fight poaching using one of the experiments that has been conducted by scientists in Africa, the DNA mapping of elephants. Though I did not have elephant poop or elephant hair or elephant saliva to extract the DNA in the state of Oklahoma, I used strawberries and wheat germ to extract the DNA of strawberries. I showed students how to compare the extraction process of DNA of strawberries to the extraction of DNA of elephant tusks and elephants. And scientists are using these extraction of DNA of elephants to study poaching patterns. And they're making poaching hotspot maps, which has implications for law enforcement. So children now were walking around the school with their DNA necklaces, telling each other, "You know what, I can now go to Africa and protect the rhinos or the elephants." Another lesson that I taught was about sea turtles in the classroom, my experiences of working with sea turtles in Sri Lanka, in India, and Costa Rica. So children were not only learning the science behind the sea turtles, but they were also learning about the countries and cultures where sea turtles were found. At the end of my tour, I was amazed by the overwhelming response and support from the students that I decided to start my own nonprofit, my own 501c3, and I called it the World Experiences Foundation. And who knew that today the foundation would be serving over 40 schools, helping them meet global competencies and helping them bring quality global experiences to their classrooms. We have 6 programs at the World Experiences Foundation. And today I want to focus on 2 of our major programs. The Global Connect program that started when I was teaching 4th grade in Oklahoma City Public Schools. And this was the first time, as you can see in the pictures to the left, this was the first time my students had traveled to India. And this was a group of orphans from India who wanted to talk to my students, and they wanted to learn to speak English, they wanted to learn to communicate in English, and they wanted to tell them a little bit about India, and they wanted to perform a Bollywood number. So my students were so excited with that Bollywood number, they were like, "Mr. Patel, what can we do in return for them?" I was like, at that point I couldn't think anything. I was like, "Let's just do the Harlem Shake." And we did the Harlem Shake. The pictures to the right are of our 3 professionals and engineers from Brazil who not only taught my 4th graders not differential equations, but quadratic equations, but they also taught them about their homeland of Brazil. We had visitors from Lesotho and Swaziland. These are tiny monarchies in South Africa. My students had never heard the word monarchy. They didn't know what this form of government was, so they asked them questions like, "Hey, do you have to bow to your king when he walks in the street?" They asked them questions like, "Do y'all have cows in Lesotho and Swaziland?" To which they responded, "Yeah, we have cows, but we also have buffaloes, and we drink buffalo milk." And my children went, "Ew," because in America, we don't have water buffaloes. So children were not only learning from these professionals and connecting with people worldwide through WhatsApp, through Skype, through Google Hangout, but they were also getting an opportunity to see the environments that these children and these professionals came from. And many a times they would run into students from Bangladesh or from Sri Lanka, where they would find out that these children had to walk for almost 30 minutes to make it to school, or some of these children didn't have classroom supplies. And even though my children were from the United States, from a Title I school in Oklahoma City, they were incredibly blessed because we had community partners, we had churches that gave them everything. Classroom supplies, they gave them books, they gave them everything. So children did not value what they had. And oftentimes I would face a problem with children recklessly using and throwing and wasting their resources. And when children got to connect with these students from Pakistan, they learned empathy. They empathize with their problems and they learn to appreciate the many great freedoms they enjoy in the United States of America. We also got to network with some interesting authors. The very first image is of an author from Alaska. She came to my classroom and she read books virtually, and she was talking to my students about the Iditarod. The second individual to the right is a Nepali actor from the Nepali film industry. He came and spoke about the profession of acting and modeling, and he also spoke to us about his home country of Nepal. The third image is of many occasions when students got to conference using Google Hangout or Skype with individuals from all around the globe, sometimes 2, sometimes 5, sometimes 10. And this was an instance when we had visitors from Brazil and Liberia speaking to the students about Ebola and Zika. We had mystery Skypes or mystery Hangouts, which students did not know who they were talking to that day. They would be given atlases, and they would be given Chromebooks, and they would have to ask questions to determine their location. And they would engage in this fierce competition with the people on the other end. And as soon as whoever won, they would get an opportunity to interact with them about their school day, about their country, about their culture. We also had bilingual mentors and bilingual authors, especially in Oklahoma City. Being a teacher of 2 classrooms, 4th grade, 30 and 30 students in each classroom, students at all different levels, and 12 students that spoke English as a second language or were from Central America, it's incredibly hard for one teacher to differentiate instruction for all students. So I paired them with authors, just like this lady from Peru. She's a bilingual author. She would come and read the books to the students in both the languages, and she would differentiate the instruction for me. And just like her, I had many other bilingual mentors for these students, and that would help me meet their competencies and help me reach these students that I would not be able to otherwise. We got to network with CEOs of companies. This gentleman is from Community Recycling in Washington. This guy recycles stuff from the United States and sends it to 40 different countries. So my students were thrilled. One of my students went up and she was like, "Hey, Mr. CEO, you do some fascinating work. How can I help you?" So he's like, "You know what? I'm going to send you a box with shipping paid for. You just put in your old clothes and old shoes in it and send it back to me." So a few weeks later, we sent it back to him, and he Skyped back with us, and he's like, "Hey, look, Bella, these are your shoes. I'm sending them to the Philippines." So for the first time, students at this Title I school had realized that you don't have to be rich to make a difference in someone's life. And we can all make a difference, and we can all serve. Students travel all the way from Kiribati to Bhutan. Kiribatis are small islands or atolls in the Pacific Ocean that are being affected because of global climate change. Their schools are underwater. So for the first time, my students had heard the word refugee. And a lot of them offered. They were like, "Mr. Patel, can I open my house to these children? Because they're going to have to move very soon." To the right, we had an individual from Bhutan, a very unique country. This country was the last country on earth that introduced television. After they introduced television, they saw a spike in crime. This is also a country with restricted tourism. You have to pay $160 to $180 every day to their government to travel in that country, unless you're from one of the exempt countries or an Indian national. This is also a country that not only measures GDP or the gross domestic product, but also the gross domestic happiness of its citizens. The King of Bhutan introduced the World Happiness Day at the United Nations. A lot of times, educators from all over the state of Oklahoma, they reach out to me and they're like, "Mr. Patel, because of these budget cuts, we don't have money to take our students on field trips." So that's when we at the World Experiences Foundation established collaborations with local parks, with zoos, with fire stations, with police stations, and now children can travel virtually on field trips in the state of Oklahoma and elsewhere through their classrooms. The second program that I would like to focus on that's incredibly popular among our schools is the International Day program. International Day program recruits Americans with global experiences and any international student or scholar from local universities in the state of Oklahoma to go and spend an entire day of service learning at an elementary, middle, or high school. So they get to spend the time dancing, performing at the multicultural assembly, and then they rotate from classroom to classroom, teaching children different disciplines using their cultures and using their countries. So there's a lady from Swaziland. We had visitors from Brazil, from India, from Nepal, from Argentina, from Vietnam, from China. And this was an opportunity for them to connect with these mentors and role models who were not only students at universities, but they were career-bound. They were wanting to become doctors or engineers, so children were seeing role models in these students, and at the same time traveling around the globe with these students. This story particularly is heartwarming because this was a group of Javan students, Javan visitors at the University of Oklahoma, and they developed this incredible bond with my students over 6 months that they were in America, that they came to my classroom the last day that they were in America, and they surprised my students with a soccer ball that they all autographed. So my students till this day, they play with that soccer ball thinking that they really got a soccer ball from these Brazilian soccer players. So not only would they teach different disciplines, they would also engage in global art, global PE, global music. And these are just 2 of our 6 programs. Our other programs, the Global Ambassadors Leadership Institute, trains high school and college students to become global citizens. Our Global Citizen Awards Gala honors global citizens from across the state of Oklahoma and the world. Our International Service Learning Trips take students high school and college on service learning trips worldwide. And our Professional Development trains teachers, professors, and principals on how to bring the world in a standards-based setting to their classrooms. And our work with global citizenship has now earned us accolades from the President to Governor Mary Fallin to the 2015 Multicultural Teacher of the Year, the Human Rights Award, Mr. UCO International right here, and of course, the 40 Under 40 honors. So the 2 programs that I focus on today, Global Connect and International Day, are programs that can easily be started by any global citizen anywhere around the world. And these programs can help children and adults preview their misconceptions about other cultures, dispel any stereotypes, treat everyone the same, and thus help fight and eliminate racism, bigotry, stereotyping, and xenophobia from the face of our planet. Thank you.